OBS here. So that should
Does this 3 example, does the interaction work with controllers?
3 example meaning...
Sorry, the chain bagel, the educated chain bagel on Glitch. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh yeah, right.
Does that work? Does it have controller interaction?
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, that's exciting.
All right. So we are. Let me check to see if the YouTube audio is working first and foremost. Let's see. We want to go 30 minutes and find out we don't have sound. Let's see. Let me go to YouTube. Yeah, so this is the 20th Aframe WebXR online Hacknight. Yay, number 20.
Wow, 20.
Yeah, that's 20 weeks. That's amazing. Yeah. And I looked at some of the old videos. They really need to get online because they're actually there's some good moments, really interesting stuff that we covered and did that we've captured in good quality video. So I'm looking forward to that. I was looking at the videos last night, and they look good. Was it last night or the other day? See what happened here. I was gonna go to YouTube, right? And then oh, okay. So it's prompting me for my YouTube password, I guess. Great, and then let me go ahead and check my channel. Since we've got a video that's live now, go ahead and turn the sound up. Oops. Oh, first of all, let me turn the sound off on here. Let's see. How do I do that? I guess okay. I'm gonna lose my video for a second. And then now I can hear this. Is this? Yep. First of all, let me turn the sound off on here. Okay, can someone else say something?
Hey, Micah. This is Mignon.
All right. Hey, Mignon. Okay, I'm gonna lose my video for a second. And then now I can hear this. Is this? Yep. First of all, let me turn the sound off on here. Okay, can someone else say something?
Hey, Micah. This is Mignon.
Alright. Great. Okay, so the YouTube is definitely working. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
It took a long time, but okay, so let me reopen the video tab. Let's go ahead and join the meeting with video. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so we are working. Everything's working 100%. Yay. Great. So let's go ahead and Mignon, if you want to go ahead and show us what you've created this week. I took a look at it for a second, but do you want to share your screen, or do you want to put it up on my screen? It doesn't matter to me.
Well,
It's on Glitch. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how much I want to really go through the code because it's quite a mess right now. I mean, I'm mostly
You don't have to. We can just.
we'll talk about it a little, I guess, but also it's very much a continuation of what I was doing last week. So people who haven't seen that,
They can watch last week's episode.
I mean, I can answer questions about it, but I don't feel like going through from the beginning and trying to explain it.
Okay.
But this is just, okay. So yeah, so I guess I could share the demo.
So if anyone hasn't seen the last two nights, oh okay, so that's menu on screen. Let me go ahead and make this bigger on my screen too.
I was trying to share. Actually, I was trying to share the demo, not the code. It's maybe the too many tabs open. Oh, is it sharing it now? No.
Not right now. It's not sharing anything right now. Your screen stopped sharing temporarily.
Yeah, it's because I'm trying to pick a tab, but this one? Okay, I guess this is it. So this is the same. So this is demoing doing instancing and saving information per instance and per vertex. So last week it looked pretty much like this, except that the tetrahedra were just they were just solid, not exactly solid colors, but there was just one color per vertex. And then if you clicked on it, then the nearest vertex would turn red, and it would save that information. So it was saving information per vertex, per instance in a data texture, and using that for instancing. So what I've added now is instead of saving color data in that data texture, I'm saving texture coordinates, and then I made a texture that has some letters in it. So now if you click, so before each side of the tetrahedron was just one triangle, and now I made one of the sides actually have 6 triangles. It's actually 6 triangles. It doesn't look like it, but it's 6 overlapping triangles. And but if you click on any of the triangles, either a big one or a small one, it changes the letters. So you can cycle through A, B, C, D, E, it's back to A. And it has the same behavior in terms of as soon as you click on it, it stops. And then if you click on a different one, the one that had been selected goes back to its place in the swarm. So that part's the same. But the interesting part now is that it's slowly moving more towards being a Post-it note.
Yeah.
It's still not exactly usable, but at least it has letters. You could make a very short message using the first 6 letters of the alphabet.
Yeah.
And it would stay there.
So
I mean, I'm not persisting it to the database, but I mean it's stored until you reload.
Yeah, that's really neat. So so all the letters are fitting on one texture?
Yeah. And so I had to
I lost your audio for a second, Mignon. I don't know if anyone else can hear you. Can anyone else?
So, with the texture.
What did you say?
I said even making a PNG file, making the texture with it as a PNG file
Yeah.
it took me a while to figure out, an app that I could do that with. And as you can see, it's not, I mean, visually it's pretty ugly. That's because, I was just experimenting with, just trying to get anything to show up in the texture and, just trying to get things, right side up
Yeah, that's
so
very.
one thing that I did was, I wanted to try to minimize the triangles, of course. So I made them overlapping so that so each letter actually takes only one triangle, which may or may not be useful. I mean, obviously that makes, the letters kind of triangle shaped. But I think it could be done, with just one triangle per letter, so that would be nice.
I'm sort of curious. How is it accomplished that you can hide the rest of the texture and only display part of the texture?
Well, you just pick coordinates that the way textures work is you pick for each triangle you pick 3 points on the texture and you say map this triangle of the texture onto this triangle in the
Oh, okay.
so I can show you what the image looks like. Actually, maybe you can see it in Glitch.
Yeah, so you could probably take like an existing keyboard texture that's like one texture and just use that as your baseline if you wanted to.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to design my own font here, but I was just trying to.
I mean, it's really what's really cool about this is I think you could even like use like for me this like makes me think of like the basis of like a game, like a puzzle game, where you go into and you've got the pyramids, and so I imagine like you have this you're playing some sort of adventure game with one of Eric's. He's doing this third person like Tomb Raider type of thing, and you find these pyramids and you have to click on the different parts of it until you create some sort of pattern that completes the puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be. I in this particular situation, I kind of don't want it to be a puzzle. Ideally, it would be easy to figure out what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, if we're gonna actually have something like Post-it notes, then we want to have some different kind of input system. You shouldn't have to pull the trigger until you get to the right part of the alphabet. I mean, you should be able to have a keyboard or.
Right.
Yeah, I mean some kind of keyboard, but I'm just trying to work my way towards being able to do the instancing part of it and save the necessary data in a data texture.
Yeah.
So that this is not meant to be practical, but I am keeping that Post-it example in mind. And performance-wise, I mean, this does seem to work pretty well. It's still it's limited by the size of the data texture. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but last time I said that if I tried to so I set the maximum instance count here to 10,000 because if I did 20,000, then it would say that the data texture was too big. Might not even be able to go that. I haven't actually tried. Let me see if it'll do 10,000 because the data texture is a little bigger now because there's more triangles in the. You can't actually see the letters, but if you click on one of those up there.
Wow.
But it's still doing 60 frames per second. Um,
Huh.
so what was I saying about that? Oh yeah, it won't let you make an arbitrarily large data texture, but I haven't. I'm sure there are ways to get more out of what's available.
Mm-hmm.
But doing a million might be hard.
Right.
But you don't really need a million post-it notes, right?
No, definitely not. And I think that one of the ideas was that when we got to the limit of what we could have at once, then we would use we would store some of them and delete them from the page and import more of them from an external server, and so you'd be able to cycle through an infinite amount of post-its, but you would only see maybe 10,000 of them at a time.
Yeah.
We don't even need to see 10,000 of them at a time. I'm just like, maybe a few hundred would be enough to see at one point in time. You could give the illusion that there's 10,000 to look at, and then just cycle them in.
Yeah. And then the fact that they're like rotating around, obviously, I don't know why you would want actual post-it notes to do that. I'm just doing that so that you can see.
Yeah, it's just a visual.
That by picking one, you're stopping it. But what you really want is you want to pick one, and then it comes to you, and you do what you want, and then when you're done, then it goes back. But I don't know. I guess there could be some flow of post-it notes through the world. Yeah, I would like to make it so that, and this should be easy, but so when you click on it, it not only stops, but maybe it comes closer to you, because in VR that it's actually, it's just as much of a problem here that they see how it's going behind the other one, right? So that's kind of
yeah.
But this is obviously very much just a demo.
I like the idea of so going back to like if you could organize all of the concepts that you encounter at a high level, like all of the concepts in the world. And sort of like, to help, because there's so much information in the world that people can't really wrap their minds around everything all at once. And like if you dive into like one category of like just neuroscience, there's more that's been written on the topic of neuroscience than people have in the number of hours in their lifetime. There's just too much, and there's so many different categories like that. And so if you want to, people want to organize information in useful ways and sort of chunk up as they grow in their development of different lines of or different categories of information. And you in your studies and you learn all these different cool things, but then you get to, at various points in your life, you get to like information overwhelm where you just can't keep all of it in your head at once. And so I think of this sort of, I remember this video of seeing it was a video of a dog, and the dog was looking at the countertop, and then looking at a chair, and then looking at something like some food item on top of the counter, and then back to the countertop, and then the chair, and then the food item. And it was like, and I was imagining, okay, what's going on in the dog's mind? If dog's mind is a computer and it's rendering each of the three things that the dog keeps looking at. It's looking at the counter, the height of the counter, the chair, the thing on the top of the counter, and it's going through this sequence of like, okay, I'm going to visualize this, and then this, and this, and I do this in a cycle, and then I put it all together, and the dog jumps up on the chair, and then jumps up on the counter, and it grabs the food off of the counter, and put all these different thought patterns together into a sequence of behavior that resulted in the achievement of a goal. And that's sort of like what I can imagine people might like to do, is you take these different different major concepts, and you can organize them into pyramidal structures that represent the hierarchies of some, of some knowledge silo, and then you have them float around in reference to other silos, and your mind is able to like make these really interesting connections between these different floating silos of thought, and you begin to maybe get a bigger picture of the connections between these different silos.
You've got big ambitions for my demo.
No, I've been thinking about this for like 10 years, but yeah, for sure.
Well, I don't think I'll be able to do that in the next week, but I'll work on it. Okay.
Okay, cool. But yeah, no, I'm like the idea that we have a virtual mind map is that you can organize all the content in the entire world into, or all the content in your mind into 3D, and then you can sort of like do what the dog did in terms of the kitchen counter scenario, where you can put things together in a spatial way that may not have occurred when they were just flat documents on a computer. And so I'm excited about that. That's to me, that's like, that would be a really useful research tool, perhaps, to help people to wrap their minds around the overwhelming amounts of information created by everyone in the world.
Yeah, it does feel like being able to organize things in 3D would, well, that you would just have more room to organize things, But I don't know. I suppose it would get cluttered just as easily as 2 dimensions.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. You could come up with some really neat organizational strategies though that are very, some because arguably some organizational strategies are less pleasant, and so therefore by implication there are strategies that exist that are more pleasant. And so it could be a sort of like a designer exploration to find those strategies that are more pleasant. And maybe you could set a task to the AI, to a neural network program, to find those organizational strategies that are more pleasing to people. And that would be interesting.
Well, I mean, it might be easier just because 3D space is something that we intuitively understand. So if you put things at various XYZ coordinates in your space, it may be easier to remember where things are than when you put them in folders on your desktop,
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I agree with that.
But I don't know.
Not to mention if you couldn't put folders on XYZ space.
Yeah. But right now it's just too, it's not usable enough. I can't spend that long in VR, my headset falls off, the batteries start going, there's so many glitches and yeah, it's just,
right.
It's not ready for prime time.
Not yet.
It does seem promising though.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to trying out the hand tracking when I have that opportunity.
Yeah, the next Oculus is rumored to launch this month, so that I'm looking forward to getting one.
Yeah, I don't, that whole thing about how they're requiring you to
log in with their
log in through Facebook.
Yeah.
Really pisses. I mean, I even have a Facebook account. I don't use it much, but I don't like where that's heading.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I know. there was some good news. So the hand tracking is really, for me, it's a highlight because I'm noticing that with hand tracking is more fun than controllers. I mean, the controller tracking almost seems necessary for some applications because it moves fast and it's accurate and it's really it's the speed and accuracy of hand tracking is there's a bunch of messages here. So people are okay. Yeah, somebody shared a GitHub link, handy.js JavaScript library.
That was me. That was just released on Shiny, the Shiny list, which is artist sort of like web list.
Okay. But I've been playing with the Aframe hand tracking stuff in the 3GS hand tracking stuff with the Oculus browser, and I kind of like it better. And and so to me it's like really good news that was it Qualcomm, I think, signed a deal with the folks who make Leap Motion. Ultra Leap is their name now, and so that means that basically the Qualcomm processor is the core machine that powers the Oculus Quest, and the idea here is that they're now integrating one of the best hand tracking technologies for years, the Leap Motion, into this and the significance is that one of the things that you have like there are companies that can easily make Qualcomm reference design headsets that are similar to the Oculus Quest, but they don't have Quest controller tracking. I mean, they could license Microsoft's controller tracking, right? But there's this then there's an engineering bridge. Okay, well, how do I get the Microsoft controller tracking to work with the Qualcomm thing? And someone's going to do that, but it's kind of a good sign that we have Qualcomm integrating hand tracking into the core reference design, and that means that Qualcomm. What that means is that there's going to be sort of like a turnkey solution for companies to. Like it could be Hewlett Packard or Acer to just go to Qualcomm. You have one company, you buy license, and then now you're selling an Oculus Quest competitor, and all these companies that are on Oculus Quest or want to be on Oculus Quest can start shipping products for your headset, which is a hand tracking based headset, but it has the same sort of ability to play Oculus Quest software that game developers can they ultimately own, and so they can bring to your platform, they're gonna have to get it to work with hand tracking, but I think that's what people want because it's a more interesting user interface. The more I play with hand tracking with VR, I'm like, this is, to me, it's better than controllers. So somebody says, sorry, this does gesture recognition. So
yeah, it doesn't just do it doesn't just make a library so that it's easy to sense your hands.
Mm-hmm.
It also does gesture recognition. I think maybe even in ASL, I haven't looked into it closely yet. I just have used another library that this person made, and the other library was controller library, and it was super wonderful.
So let me go ahead and am I sharing my screen? I guess I'm not. Let me go ahead and share.
Yeah, it does do ASL letter recognition.
Wow.
Among other gestures.
That would be a good input for post-it notes.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to learn ASL.
It's by, I'm trying to look up his name. Right, Stuart Smith, who's a creative coder, and has worked in VR for a long time.
Okay, so Ari says check out this link. There's a great WebXR hand tracking. I'll put this in the document.
Cool. I really like your demo, by the way. It's really neat.
So let's see. So is this ready for? This is a 3JS handy.js. Do we want to add shape? Want to add hand shape recognition to your WebXR project? I'm wondering if. Oh, okay. So. Oh, so Mignon does not yet have hand tracking. So it's. I was gonna say let's add the hand tracking to the mesh instancing letter demo, but it's a little bit early. We'll wait for Mignon to get a hand tracking.
So can you? I mean, I assume you can, but if you're doing the hand tracking, can you point at something and have the the ray come out of your finger? So
I believe you can also do pointing. Yeah. I think you can. Well, I'll just say that I've seen demos. I haven't seen what the code looks like, but I've seen demos of where when you're doing a pointing gesture, a ray is emitted from your finger, and then to click, you would record a gesture that's like your thumb tapping on your finger or any gesture you want. And so if you look here, how to listen for hand shapes, that's sort of like, I think that's what we're looking for is like, we're listening for a hand shape, and then you make that hand shape that's like a pointing hand shape. And then when it recognizes that hand shape, then it knows we're going to emit a ray from the finger, from the index finger. And then it's also going to listen for the hand shape of the thumb touching the knuckles, and that's when we're going to emit the click, I think. So that would be interesting to start doing something with this. There's probably sample code on here we could look at. Let's see. Navigate to hands and controllers. Hand listener. So I'm thinking Eric is probably not coming around today, or maybe he'll be in later. I don't know.
No, he hasn't been posting anything lately in Discord, so I'm guessing he's probably pretty busy right now.
Could be. He is a teacher, and he does, maybe he has to grade papers or something. I heard that.
And I think he started doing some consulting. He said he was starting.
Oh yeah, he got some contracts from big.
Verbella, so.
Yeah, a couple of big companies hired him for some consulting projects. Yeah, Verbella. Verbella does the like events and virtual reality.
Uh-huh.
But their code is super slow, and I said you can help them out. You can make it fast, make it efficient, because he's really good at cutting out code that's not necessary. And he replied, he says, I'm under NDA. I can't tell you anything about what I'm going to do for them. But I was like, I don't need to know. Just tell him you can help him with that.
Is there a Discord for this group, and is it publicly available?
For the Hacknight, this Hacknight?
Yeah.
Yes, there is. There's a Discord. Well, we have a Discord chat. I mean, I can add you to the chat.
I'd like that if that's possible.
Yeah, sure. Let me add you. So do you want to? Okay. So am I talking to Ari?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to in the chat? Do you want to send me your Discord ID, and I will send you a friend request, and then I'll add you to the chat.
Let me figure out how to find that. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Is there anyone else in the in part of the meetup tonight that has not joined the Discord? We can add you as well. It's no worries. I think we've got everybody except for Ari. So.
Also, before I forget, I did a couple commits to the repo, the N5R0 repo. One thing was just the basically the demo from last week.
Okay.
Which I had on Glitch last week, but added. So I added the part. I added the VR code after last week, but then after that I pushed it to the repo, so that's there. So it's actually, why don't I find that page and I can share it?
Yeah. Do you want to share? Do you want to present?
Can you open the I don't know where it is. Can you open the GitHub and share the page with the GitHub repo? If you can, I'll go find it.
Are you talking about the N5RO?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'll pull that up. Gravity gloves. So which page are we looking for?
Well, if you open the repo, then I'll show you what I did.
All right. Am I still sharing my screen? I can't tell.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. Okay. So, oops, that's not the right thing. So we need to go to N5RO. There we go. I think that's it. Okay. Okay, so this is the repo, and then
right. So that PIPV.
Yeah.
That's new.
Okay.
PIPV stands for per instance per vertex. I know it's not a great name, but so this is basically the demo I showed last week, but plus VR. So that's in there. And then the other thing is so a few weeks ago I demoed something where I just took some of the A-frame GUI controls and put them into persistent world. Remember?
Yeah.
Just that big ugly control panel, and like you could use it to turn on and off the VR log. So I committed that because I didn't want to lose it, but I put it on a separate branch because I didn't want to actually add it to the persistent world. So if you look at can you switch to look at the branches? See where it says no. Do you know where the drop down is for the branches?
Branches, master,
right here.
glitch.
Okay, so it's called a GUI experiment.
Okay.
Okay, so I just did one commit there. Well, if you look at the commits, I guess you can see it, and it just adds that. It's just a version of persistent world that has the control panel in it. So it has a slider and
right.
Just a button and
That's cool.
and most of them don't even do anything except log to the console. But then there's a couple you can toggle the VR log and you can toggle all the clickable items. But it was just a something that we talked about like a month ago, and then I was afraid we were going to lose it. I was trying to find it. It took me a long time to find it online. So I thought, okay, why don't I just check it in?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So let me type this. So this is Mignon's A-frame GUI inside in A-frame GUI in persistent world. Saved to the GitHub, so it's on the GitHub there. So we've got the link to that.
You have to say that it's on a different branch.
Yeah, so it's in the okay, it's in a different branch. It's in the, let's see. Well, this is a direct link, but
but that doesn't include the name of the branch, that link.
it's in a different branch.
I know there's a way to get that, but I don't see the name of the branch in that link.
Yeah, you're right. So the branch name is GUI-EXPT. Okay, so the branch name is GUI-EXPT. Instead of instead of master. Okay, so that
That's it.
great. Yeah, no, it's important to preserve these things. The on GitHub because Glitch has no organizational structure, and after a while it becomes a little bit difficult to distinguish one thing from another on Glitch.
Oh, glitch is horrible.
Yeah, there's no hierarchical structure for that. But yeah, it's a good thing we've got these notes, so people can find stuff.
So actually, one thing I'd like to do, maybe sooner rather than later, is try to turn this 3JS demo into an A-frame component. Not that it would be a useful component really, but because this is after all an A-frame group, and also because I haven't ever actually done that, like taken some significant piece of code and turn it into an A-frame component.
Oh yeah.
Well, I would like to do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And then we could actually add it to persistent world.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to work on it live and we can all watch.
No.
Okay.
I can't work that way.
Oh, okay.
Do you mind giving like a super brief overview about the relationship between 3.js and A-frame? Super brief, because I'm coming from a 3.js background, and then I moved into coding VR in Babylon, and now I pretty much only code in Babylon, and so sort of have not messed with A-frame that much. Does A-frame, isn't it almost like a really quick and simple, supposed to be like a very simple, fast interface for doing coding in VR, where you can like take 3.js stuff and turn them into like single objects that you can plug in to an A-frame setup?
Yeah, well, A-frame is it's based on 3JS.
Okay.
But it's aimed at people who don't. I would say its primary audience is actually people who don't even know how to use 3JS.
Okay.
And they just, so you can write code declaratively using like HTML syntax.
Mm-hmm.
But behind the scenes, it's using 3.js, and then if you want to do more advanced stuff, then you have to start looking at the 3JS code, and and so that it might be a way to start learning 3JS for somebody who doesn't have that much coding experience, for instance.
It's built as A-frame builds itself as an entity component system for 3JS. It sort of the way Unity builds itself as an entity component system. Like this is how you you arrange things into entities, and you add the code as components, and it's sort of maybe it's a way of thinking about your code as in a game engine sort of framework.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how, I mean, I don't know.
Do y'all code?
It has various primitives defined, like a sphere, for instance. Everything starts with A. So in your HTML, it's like, just like you have divs and what else do you have in HTML? Can't even remember. But just like you have divs inside of other divs and so on, you use the A-frame primitives that way. You can put, you can make. You do have a scene like you do in 3.
Yeah.
But the scene is also, what do you call that? An HTML element?
DOM element?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's analogous to a DOM element.
It's the DOM tree.
Or I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. I mean, maybe what you're doing is you're actually adding, because I think there is a way to actually create new DOM elements. So I think that's what they do behind the scene. So they actually create a new DOM element called a sphere. And if you put one of those in your scene, then you get a sphere appears on the screen.
Mhm.
And more interestingly in VR, because that's really what it's aimed at.
Mhm.
So the part that I haven't done, and that I'd be interested in doing here, is taking something that's written in Three.js and turning it into a component and making a primitive out of it, so that then you can just add it to your HTML and do it that way. So
Cool.
yeah.
Thanks. No, that's helpful. I went from Three.js into Babylon, and so just sort of missed out on the Aframe step or whatever. But I came to Three.js from P5.js, which is like a library that's meant to bring people who don't have a computer science background, like artists mostly, deeper into like web graphics.
So I've never used Babylon. So can you give me a brief description of that?
I am obsessed with it. It changed, like, it's sort of how do I describe this? It's like Three.js, but with tons of gaming abstractions. There is a visual editor if you want to use it, so you can use it in a Unity-like setup, or you can just be coding away on Glitch, either way you want. Those high-level gaming abstractions are like very, very useful for VR. And the community is, I don't know, it appears to me to be as robust as the Three.js community. Or like the size of the Three.js, let me say that a little bit better. The size of the Three.js gaming community, I would say, is like equivalent to the size of Babylon.js, which is a gaming engine, all running in JavaScript.
So would you consider maybe showing us Babylon.js?
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Great. I'll go ahead and let you take over the screen if you want.
Okay. Let me think about the right way to do this. I think I have one way of doing it. Okay, so how do I share my screen?
It's in for Jitsi. It's in the lower left corner, next to the chat window.
Share your screen.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm building very briefly, then move away from that into looking at the website proper.
Okay.
So I'm also working in Glitch, and this is taking a while to load. I am building a VR world. I guess it's a game to explore like human swarm interaction. So every player gets basically a swarm of robots and can switch into the perspective of any one of the robots or back into their own perspective and walk around the VR environment. It's going to take a while to load because one of the assets is extremely high poly.
Okay.
Usually it loads very fast, but I'm working with an asset that's like a disaster. So it takes a long time. Like, I know this asset is a disaster, but I'm just kind of going for it. I'll show you which asset it is when we actually get in there.
Okay. Yeah, we've always wanted to. I mean, I've always wanted to have people talk about Babylon.js because that's a part of WebXR, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're here today.
I didn't know I was going to be doing this, so hopefully everything runs fine. I think it will. I think that this is just, again, this one asset that's driving this thing insane is a scan that I made of my room. Anyway, so we're in a VR world. There's a bunch of trees. I actually scanned these trees in my neighborhood, then like reduced their poly count and like threw them in this VR world. I'm going to take you to the one scan that's messing everything up before we go into VR, and then I'll show you the robots.
Okay.
So this is like a scan of my room that I did with my phone. Like there's my window. What else are we looking at? There it's like a poster. Here's another window. There's my door. This is the scan that's I'm still learning how to use a kind of high poly disaster scan like this.
Okay.
Anyway, so if we go into VR, we're flying in the landscape. Let me pull up the inspector. Mozilla's WebXR inspector. I'm assuming you guys use that. Is that something you guys play with?
We usually use the Chrome inspector on the, but we're familiar with inspectors, yeah.
No, sorry. This specific Mozilla WebXR inspector. Do you guys use this?
No.
Oh, this is a plugin.
But you're using Chrome right now, right?
I'm using Chrome, and this is a extension by Mozilla for debugging WebXR experiences.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Very useful. And right now we're flying with these robots. So these are Boids, programmed with classic Boid behavior. And we can use our controller to flip into their point of view and out, back onto the ground or whatever, and then you can go walk around. So this is the thing I'm trying to build. I don't know why I'm even trying to build this, but like I'm just doing this all the time. And it's built on top of, let's get out of me and go to where the action is. It's built on top of Babylon. And God, what is the right way to explain this? It's like Unity, but all in JavaScript, but like runs on the browser. Let's go look at their VR examples, maybe. Okay, so learn examples. It's very similar to 3.js, but the difference is just that it comes with gaming abstractions. So like, and what I mean by that is like it like I think Canon.
Is it open source?
Yes, it is.
I mean, I think of Aframe as like that's the gaming abstraction layer, the entity component system.
Then it must be like a sort of similar thing, but from another side here. Maybe like A-Frame plus 3.js is like gaming in VR, and then Babylon.js VR is like its own integrated stack for that, kind of. And maybe they're like roughly analogous to each other.
Maybe.
I'm trying to find best. Yeah, like here we are. So it also has like a playground, the way that glitch, it has its own kind of like glitch.conf, for example. So it has a playground environment where you can test things. Here's the physics playground. This is the one that I was hacking to make that example that I showed you all. Let me get this loaded, press play. What I like about it, so this is a VR physics demo where you can go like hit these things, they'll fall, so integrated physics in VR. You can go roll these balls around, you can do whatever you want. And
What physics library do they use? Or do they have their own?
I feel like I'm going to butcher everything that I'm saying, so I'm going to just say everything's provisional. I think they're using Canon.
Oh, Canon. I see Canon. Yeah.
So we used Canon inside the gravity gloves that we made with the A-Frame Hacknight. We're using Canon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
The A-Frame physics component, I think, uses Canon.js.
Okay, so it's the same physics engine. Something that I've found to be helpful with, aside from, they're also like the forum is insanely active. Like you post a question almost always the next day, you've got somebody to talk to about it.
Nice.
The other thing that's really helpful, and this is sort of the last thing I'll say, and then I'm kind of like done, is that setting up a basic scene was it's kind of amazing how, maybe this is the same in A-Frame, but like setting up your basic scene and then just getting going in VR is super rapid, and flipping on and off WebXR features is also super easy. So you can like load in more complex features or turn them off
Yeah.
very quickly. And I would love to know if A-frame actually is like similar to that, or
Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
different?
No, it's very similar to that. Like
Okay.
it's the bait.
A-frame is it's quick to get started, but come on, Micah. A-frame is not really supported anymore. A-frame is kind of abandoned.
Well, I mean, I see that the guy. I don't know if I don't. I don't know if I.
Well, it's semi-abandoned. Come on, it's not very active, right? I mean, what active?
So I mean, if you look in
they
the
have a forum that's active, no.
if you look in for A-frame, if you look in the A-frame Discord and in the A-frame Slack and on Stack Overflow for A-frame, the people who made A-frame are in all 3 channels and they're answering questions every day. And there's lots of other people who are answering questions too. So for me, it looks like it's very active, and it looks like they're continuing like to push out new editions of A-frame, and they have.
Wait, tell me about that, because I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's
So there's a new version.
The last one may have been like A-frame 1.0.4 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it was when we started this meetup.
So that was 20 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it takes a while to push out new versions.
But yeah, but they're a little bit. 3JS has to. There's kind of like there's 3JS has new updates, and then those updates have to get worked into A-frame and but it seems to me like A-frame is still a project that its creators care about a lot. I mean, I follow these guys on Twitter and Discord and Stack Overflow and Slack and I don't know if they're. I think I said Twitter already, but yeah.
I mean, it definitely has nice features, and it is very, very easy to get started. I mean, you go to the A-frame site and you click on, I don't know what it's called, but it's like, start a new project, and you're in Glitch and you run it, and you can go right in there.
I mean, I like the fact that both Babylon and 3GS and A-frame, they're all like open source. Like anybody can lead the development of these and pull new improvements to the core code base. And then someday if the creators, with open source code, if the creators, stop updating it, someone could fork the entire project and that happens, to open source projects as it continues with whoever is going to be the person who is passionate about continuing the development of the project. So,
is there a visual? I thought this person's question was really interesting too. Like, I just discovered the visual editor for Babylon. I've just began using it because before I was just scripting everything.
Yeah, so
is there also a visual editor for A-frame?
There, in fact, there is. The A-frame. Let me see if I can pull up the link to it. I'll share it with you. So, but you just like when you're in A-frame. Let me see if I can share my computer for a second here. Let me go ahead and see if I can figure out. You always get the problem of there's too many windows, but okay, so let's go ahead and let me close this, and let's go ahead and go here. Oops, wait, what did I do that for? Okay, wrong one. This one, share your screen. But share, wait, am I sharing my screen? No, share your screen. Share this screen. Share it. Okay, so if you go to any A-frame page, what you can do is let me click on show, and then I believe it's like Control-Shift-I. No, that's sorry, that's the
the regular inspector.
That's the regular inspector. Yeah. Let's see, what is it again?
Was I J?
No, Control. Wait, let me look it up real quick. See, A-frame inspector, visual inspector and dev tools. Okay. Here we go. So Control Alt I. That's right. Okay. Control Alt I. Loading inspector. So this is the inspector, right? Just like Unity. And you can and maybe they so you can do things like I can choose whether I want to let's see, I have a rotate, I have a scale. Wait, what am I doing right? Okay, so this one is okay, so that's right. That's not right. I used to be okay. Here we go. So that's what this. Okay, so if I want to scale this, then see how and then over here on the right, it's like the numbers are changing.
Right.
I could just do it 2. And then I could change this one to position. And then I could just do the rotation of the cube. And maybe rotate the cube down, and it stores my coordinates over here. And then there's like an export button or something. Export the code, and it is possible to you can sync it to to I don't know if you can sync it to Glitch, but I think you can sync it to a text editor. Or you can just save the code. Let's see, what is this? A save button? Copy entity to HTML. So this is copying the whole entity, but I want to see if I can copy the whole scene. If I can remember how to do it.
There's a script to be able to save whichever HTML file is open if it's local.
Okay.
But you have to install it and run it on the terminal.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but anyway, that's the point is that it's basically this is built into every single. It's built into the core library. So anything you make in this editor is accessible. So good news. It's kind of like I'm really kind of interested more in doing some things with Babylon.js now, just to sort of explore the similarities and differences, because I just haven't gone there.
Yeah, it was a weird moment when I was switching from 3 to Babylon, because I knew there were people who were building games and VR experiences in 3. And so I was like, okay, I'll just try Babylon for like a week and see if I like it. And it was just like dropping down a black hole. I basically never went back after that. But I was very, very shy about it because, it was 3.js that pulled me from, I don't know, the world of like 2D animation into the world of 3D animation, right?
Yep.
And I had become very comfortable with it, and also was so impressed by it that I was loath to try something different. But once I did, it really changed my workflow. So
with Babylon, do you have like objects, like Unity has objects?
I sort of don't know what you mean by that.
So I mean, I guess an object would be like an entity in A-frame, where you might say, okay, well, we have a box and that's an object or an entity, and then we have a sphere and that's a box or an entity. In A-frame, so you basically, the entity component system is like, okay, I've got a sphere, I've got a box, I've got a table, I've got a floor, I've got a room. These are all entities. And then if I want to add code, okay, well, so the code is like, okay, nothing falls through the floor, and that's some script. And so I would write that script, nothing falls through the floor, into a component, and then attach the name of that component to the entity. So the script is somewhere in a script tag on the web page, and or in another web page. But you just attach the name that references that script into the entity itself, and that's sort of like how you arrange your code within entities in the HTML. You say, okay.
I don't know. I'm actually not familiar with that as a setup.
Okay.
So it may or may not. I might be doing it without knowing that that's what I'm doing.
So I'm curious, what are you doing? Do you want to? I don't know if you have maybe an example. If you want to walk us through an example of how you might arrange a scene in Babylon, if you.
Let me think about that. I mean, I have the one that I showed you.
Okay.
Let me look at it for a second.
Sure.
I'm just trying to think about what's interesting to what is or is not interesting about this to other people. And this is also a scene that I didn't write from scratch, but did like dramatic reverse engineering on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
it feels more like, to me, 3.js-y than what I'm seeing of what you're saying about A-frame. Like, I'm doing what I was doing in 3.js, which is just like pulling up objects, defining materials, like placing them in space, like giving them, updating their positions, you know, at the draw of the frame along paths, loading objects with like a loader. So I think it's, at least in the way that I'm using it, I think it's pretty granular, but I also think that there's different ways of using it that are very different. Like, for example, using the visual, like, let me just share my screen and show the visual inspector. Sorry,
Okay.
the what is it called? Give me a second here to get this going. Sorry, the editor. That's the word that I was looking for. Like, I haven't even started using this yet.
Nice. So it's new for you.
This part of it is completely new for me, right?
Yeah. So was that a program you downloaded to your computer?
Yeah, and you can run it on the desktop. There's also a cloud version.
Okay. Is that's a Windows based? Obviously, it's Microsoft. That's a Windows.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So you know, this is pretty Unity-esque, I would say.
Yeah.
And you know, your scene is divided into nodes. Can you apply different behaviors to the different nodes in the scene? I'm pretty sure you can.
Nodes. Okay. Nodes sounds like entities, maybe.
So like, I know that these different things are nodes, and I think you can apply scripts that like reference these nodes in different ways.
So yeah, entities and nodes sounds like it's a similar metaphor, because we have an entity for ground, and we have an entity for skybox, and we have an entity for sphere, and it sounds like this node is just another term for entity. Then
it's possible. So I haven't used this. I've been coding mostly in Glitch, but I'm trying to learn more about this to see if this is something that I want to use, the editor that it comes with.
Okay.
You know, I'll just like show you my Glitch scene.
I think we found out that WebGL2 uses nodes as well.
Like this to me is really 3.js. Like, let me show you the loader. Where are we? Okay, so right, like, you know, I have a loader.
Mm-hmm.
Same way that I have a loader in 3.js. Here's my mesh of my tree that I scanned in my neighborhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm setting up a material. Here I'm like creating random starting locations for where those trees should be loaded. And then we're done, right? Like, I loaded that mesh, and it's in the scene. You know, what starts to get weird and interesting is, you know, and then this stuff, like, oh, I have a light. Okay, this looks like 3.js, right? I have an environment. I have a ground. But, you know, I've, again, like fog. These are all things you see in 3.js. I mean, what was a little bit different for me, because like this was the first thing that I was doing serious like VR coding with, was, you know, I was dealing with these things that produce flags once you enter VR, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, it flags you, hey, we're in VR. And so I like was initializing functions to change the position of the camera in VR once we went into VR. So you could stick it into the voids, into the robot's point of view, right?
Okay.
So that took some thinking, some things that I had to figure out. But, you know, I figured out that, okay, so there's an object called XR, and in the XR, there's your base experience. You know, I showed you the Babylon.js documentation of like the base experience, right? It's like, you can teleport, you can walk around, there's a floor, you won't fall through the floor. I could go find the camera in the base experience and then change its position to the void's position, right?
Okay.
And I did that for the XYZ. updated it every frame, and now we're flying around with the robot. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how to answer your question, but like coming from 3.js into this, it felt normal to me.
Yeah, that code looks normal to me. Mignon, do you feel comfortable with that code?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have any shader code in there?
I do not. I wish that I knew GLSL. I wish that that was a world that. Oh, actually, good moment to mention. I'm hoping to learn at least, shaders for idiots this way. Hold on.
I think we could start to make Babylon.js stuff very easily. That looks very familiar. Oops.
There's one last thing that I want to show you. I hope that I did this right, and I did not. There's you know how Unity has a shader graph editor?
Mm-hmm.
There's one for Babylon also.
Whoa.
I'm trying to find it. God, hold on. Shader graph. I think that is also new. Where is it? I can't find this, but I know that it exists. Maybe this is it? Yeah. Hold on a second here. Here we are. Now we're at the right place. Okay, cool. So I believe you can start to build your own shaders.
Did you want to share your screen again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was sharing it.
No worries.
Here we go. So here's the editor, basically. And I think it helped.
Somebody was showing. Oh, this is Babylon's?
Yeah.
Okay, so that looks just like one that somebody was showing us last week, right?
The node editor.
Yeah, probably the Unity one.
I think Eric was showing us like the WebGL2 editor, node editor.
There was one that just looked exactly like this. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was Eric was showing us the WebGL2 node editor. That's what I think it was.
What is that?
WebGL2 is node editor. Let me see if I can find it. Just sort of looking on my computer. WebGL2, I mean, so, like Babylon and Babylon.js and 3.js are high-level languages that run on top of WebGL and WebGL2 and WebGPU, which is new.
Mm-hmm. What's WebGPU?
So WebGPU is sort of like a high-level optimization of your GPU. It's basically the next thing after WebGL, where you are able to make more use of your GPU so that your 3D web applications can get basically the same as native performance, because they're able to use the GPU. It's sort of so there was OpenGL and for a while, and then came along for the Macs. They came along with Metal, and then for the PCs they came along with Vulkan, and then there was DirectX 12, and what Metal, Vulkan, and DirectX 12 represented was basically like code that was like a graphics library that was a low-level graphics library that was better optimized to take advantage of your GPU, so that when you wrote code at a high level, that it would be more performant and you'd get better graphics with less work, and than you would with using something like OpenGL. And so WebGL was sort of based on OpenGL, and then WebGPU, which is intended to replace WebGL2, is sort of that same sort of like performance improvement of taking the Metal, the Vulkan, and the DirectX 12, but bringing it to the web. So you can take advantage of your GPU's real capability with your Babylon JS or your 3JS or A-frame code. And or if you're,
I don't think you can use any of those things with WebGPU yet, right?
you can. There are instances of people who are running Babylon JS and 3JS stuff on WebGPU now, but it's early stages. Yes. Yep. There are.
I just this week, I for the first time used it.
Okay.
Well, because Eric had posted about it, and I actually thought that WebGPU for using your GPU for computation. I didn't realize it was meant to be the replacement for WebGL2, so I decided to try it out. So I downloaded Chrome Canary and turned on the unsafe flags, and I did my first. I didn't write any code, but I tried out some demos, and they worked, and started watching that tutorial that Eric recommended, the Sketchpunk guy. So I started learning about WebGPU, but it sounds like they're saying it's not something that's going to be available in the near future, other than behind a flag that's it's unsafe because of the shared memory thing. So they tell you if you're gonna use it, don't use the browser for other browsing because it might get compromised.
I don't know how they're gonna solve that, but it is, it is the future. That's.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I mean, the impression I get is that it is the future, but it's not the future
Today.
Next month.
No, it's not the future. Right. They've got some work to do on it first.
Yeah, but I'm gonna
But you
try to
can
work on that more because it does look interesting, and I am a little more interested in the lower level stuff, like WebGL, than I am in higher level stuff like frameworks.
Yeah, makes sense. You can really get into very specific. Okay. Let's see that. Let's see. I'll look for the WebGPU link I saw somebody shared on Twitter. Okay, here's an article. Okay, so let me share this article. So this was from May 9th. Yeah, I think this is the article I read. So I'm going to share this in the chat, but also I'm going to share this in the document. So let me just post this in the chat real quick. And there we go. And then
I'm trying to open the Babylon WebGPU examples, and it says it's not supported. It's not supported by your browser. So I guess I have to.
Yeah, you have to get Chrome Canary for one.
Right. Okay.
And then you have to. There's a flag that you have to turn on.
I see.
And I would definitely get the beta version of Chrome or something, and not use your regular Chrome browser.
Right.
Well, you have to. I mean, it won't. I don't think it will work unless you get Canary.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you happen to be using Canary as your regular browser, then you might not want to do it because.
I wouldn't. Yeah. So that's the thing. That's the idea. Is if you open up your unsafe flags, you want to do that on a dedicated, browser.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Good to know. That's all super interesting.
So it's somewhat, it's not completely different than WebGL2. So I feel like the stuff I've been learning is not a waste of time, but it is, it is different, and the shading language is different too. So
it's not GLSL in WebGPU.
No, I don't know what it's called, but it's it's different.
I used to know the answer to that question, and it's when you said it's not GLSL, I used to be able to answer that question. I've just forgotten what the answer was. Let's see. GLSL. I was just looking it up. Yeah, so GLSL was the OpenGL shading language. And so, okay, so we're looking for what is the WebGPU shading language. There we go. So that's called WGSL. And yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have Canary, so I'll try it later.
So WebGPU uses its own shading language.
WGSL. Okay, I see it. Because I'm looking at the demo page now for one of the demo pages for WebGPU, and I noticed earlier today it said WGSL based samples, and I was saying, I wonder what that is. Okay.
Yeah, because the other
GSL.
Yeah, because it's a shading language that's specifically built on the right.
So it's nice that all the major players are supposedly collaborating on this or cooperating.
In theory, so I mean, I've heard complaints that Apple is dragging their feet on WebGPU.
Oh, really?
Yeah, basically, I mean, the idea is if you could, the one hypothesis that I've heard, and I doubt that anyone at Apple would agree with this, but a few cynical people have expressed the opinion on Twitter that Apple's dragging their feet because WebGPU basically, like, if you can run, theoretically, if you can run your apps from the web browser and they're just as performant as native apps, then what do you need Apple's web store for? And what do you need Apple's operating system for?
Right.
With you basically, and if WebGPU is successful, then a developer could launch their apps from any web browser, and you destroy two of Apple's like cash cows, their operating system and their app store. Potentially. There's still the issue of, like, when your code is launched from a website, it's exposed 100%, and it's, I guess, it's somewhat obscured if it's executed from Unity or some other, from C++.
Yeah.
C++ or something.
You can hide a lot of logic in the back end.
Okay.
You have, like, Iris, and it's an amazing security system. Like, you can't pirate it if most of the logic runs on a server.
If most of your logic runs on a server, it's really hard to pair it to copy it.
Yep.
Okay. So if you want to copy Facebook, and people have copied Facebook, but it's just going to take you a really long time to get the latest updates, I guess, because you just have to. If you're only going to copy, because it's all done from a server, the logic at some point. I don't know what I'm saying before, but that's good to know. I mean, if you wanted to protect your application, and
I'm actually thinking about imagine an Aframe script where you have all the elements in the screen.
Yeah.
And you press a button, and the signal goes to a server, and then the server decides what happens in the room, kind of like on a multiplayer game. So then it sends an update, and then you see like a pop-up show up, but it's not a piece of data that existed on your machine until you press the button. But
Well, Aframe does have networking, and we actually did a project where we hooked it up to a database so that we could. That's what the persistent world is. I don't know if you saw that when you were looking at the GitHub demo, but we just made it so that we're using a Firebase database. Persists the state of our world.
So what's interesting about the Firebase? What's interesting about the Firebase server? I mean, you're basically storing all of our server data as a JSON object, but I think that what you're describing is like, hey, well, the logic of the page itself is processed on a different page somewhere, and then we're just transmitting back the results, which is interesting. So it's like you're hiding the transformation. You're like, okay, we're gonna.
Imagine you have a data set and you do an analytics on it, and instead of receiving the whole data, you'll just get the results from it, kind of. Yeah. But basically, it's just more like a stream of object positions, kind of like how pre-rendered HTML works.
I'm just like crunching that in my head. That's really neat. So yeah, so basically, okay.
So then, Micah, in this scenario that you're talking about, the reason Apple is involved is not to cooperate, but rather to screw things up. Is that the idea?
That is a cynical hypothesis that I've seen on Twitter. I'm sure I could find it if that was important, but. Of course, I don't think anyone at Apple would agree with that. You know, they would like to insist that they've been 100% supportive of of the web and its development. There's not enough evidence to what Google is doing in terms of web development, in terms of supporting WebXR. That's its own. It's like a one company sort of thing. The vision of what Google, as Eric was saying this, the vision for what Google has for the future of the web is different from the vision of what Apple has for the future of the web, and that's it's a pretty big problem in theory, until basically I think what happens is until consumers buy into one version of that theory, and so I wonder what is going to happen there, because Apple's making these huge investments in we see these LiDAR iPads, and I guess we're gonna see a LiDAR phone, and web AR makes a lot of sense, but then if I don't know, you see what happened with Fortnite. So Fortnite was this situation where it got pulled from the Apple Store because they tried to say, okay, well, we're just gonna ignore your App Store rules, and we're just gonna sell stuff directly to the customer. And Apple's like, no, you can't do that. And then one of the arguments I heard that was interesting was like, well, shouldn't iOS be subject to the same sort of like rules and expectations as Microsoft Windows, where any software developer can sell their own software and or have you can put your own app store on Windows, and you don't have to pay Microsoft 30% of every sale that you make through your app or for your app. So why should Apple be able to do that, right? And so these are now legal questions, and they're being debated in court. Um, and I don't know. If you I guess you're saying, well, what is Apple going to do? Well, I mean, if so what I was thinking that was, so I these other companies, they want to complain about what Apple's doing, but are they really going to be different? Is Google Google had this whole, hey, we're gonna have the Chrome OS. The Chrome OS is like, all you need is a web browser. You don't need the rest. And now they're like, okay, let's bring Android and put Android inside Chrome OS. So maybe the thinking at Google has changed. And so Apple stopped Fortnite from being sold because they went around. But it turns out Google did the same thing. Google also stopped Fortnite from being sold on Android because they were going around. On Android, you have to do this. You have to, if you have an app on the Android store, you have to pay Google a percentage for your in-app sales or for the sales of the app. And when Epic Games, when Tim Sweeney stopped and said, no, I'm not going to go along with that, then both Google and Apple, that's what we miss in the media, it was both Google and Apple said, okay, no, you can't do that. You have to follow our rules. And so you wonder, well, is Google really going to be on the side of WebGPU? Because the whole theory for WebGPU kind of interferes with the potential of WebGPU interferes with Apple's future business plans. And at some point when Apple was pushing the Chromebook, that was just a browser. Then you think, well, maybe they're going to support WebGPU, and then you have a giant that could push WebGPU across. And then you think, well, what about Epic? Epic is mad at Apple. Why don't they push WebGPU? Because that is the ultimate, that's a huge problem for Apple's future business, WebGPU potentially.
Wait, why doesn't who push it?
Epic. So Epic has this. Epic is in this Epic Games. This company that makes Unreal Engine, the company that makes Fortnite. The CEO is Tim Sweeney. Why don't they push WebGPU? Because that would really hurt Apple. They're in a war with Apple right now over Fortnite not being allowed because Epic Games doesn't want to give Apple the 30% cut for their App Store because then the customer has to pay more, right? Mm-hmm. The customer has to pay for Apple's cut. So well, why? But then the thing is well, I was thinking, well, should I write an article that describes why Epic Games should be behind WebGPU? But I'm wondering, well, maybe we're facing the same problem with Google and Epic Games that we're facing with Apple. Is that maybe nobody who is a big tech company wants to support WebGPU because because in theory, Epic wants to make money by having people use Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine has nothing to do with WebXR. It's at the point of what we're doing with WebXR potentially at some point rivals the Unreal Engine. And maybe not now, but in the next 10 years, because web technology, because it's in at least in the past, web technology develops very fast because it's like this open source, very shared, sort of people write code for their website. That code is exposed. Other people copy it. They iterate upon it. They share it some more. And code just develops very fast on the web. In theory, that could continue. I mean, I guess if we all start, figuring out clever ways of, just processing our stuff on a server, then I guess that stops. But I don't know if Epic Games will support WebGPU, even though that could be very damaging to Apple, because I guess potentially WebGPU could be potentially damaging to Unreal Engine. The whole idea of businesses like Unreal Engine and Unity, the game engine businesses, is that you make games very cheaply using their software, but then you have to pay them in some way for the fact that you use their game engines. Their billing process is different. I'm not sure how it works, but
So is Mozilla still going to work on WebGPU, or is that one of the things they cut?
That's a big unknown, I think. Unless somebody knows more than me on the topic. I mean, Mozilla was like, okay, we've got Mozilla hubs, we're gonna keep it going, but we're gonna like fire a bunch of the people who've been working on WebXR because we don't have a marketable product. People are just tinkering. And then so there's been like this search on Twitter, well, what's being cut, what's not being cut, and I think there's like noise around that. Like there's so many people that like, I don't know what's going on, that nobody knows what's going on because there's too much like, it's too much. We need to see more blog posts clarifying, and maybe they don't really know exactly what their future strategy is, and that could be part of it, and maybe or maybe they're just not sure and they don't want to talk about what their current strategy is. I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of clarity around what Mozilla is doing right now. So like the question is, who's going to support WebGPU and why? I mean, at some point, WebGPU could sort of like, you might, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's, maybe, I tried, well, what if Facebook wants to support WebGPU? But do they? Because then you could go around the Oculus store, and Oculus has sort of building up the Oculus store, and so maybe not, right? Because this like, WebGPU is the point where basically, there's no more need for operating systems or stores. Right now, Oculus is building their own sort of their own operating system for VR, right? So I guess it was Android, and now they're redoing it, so it's just it's Facebook's version of Android, or some offshoot from whatever it was. From Android to something new. I don't know exactly what their new VR operating system is made out of yet, but so maybe then I was thinking, well, who's going to support WebGPU? Maybe it's a country. Maybe I don't know. China wants to support WebGPU so they can have some leverage against all these big American tech companies. To sort of like diminish their power and influence. That would definitely.
They fabricate most of those GPUs.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I mean, if you can cut out the American tech companies and just sell more GPUs, right? So.
I mean, that's yeah. I don't think we sell more GPUs that way.
No, what I'm saying is like if software developers are able to, if we're talking about replacing the big tech companies with like a lot of smaller companies, so people sell their products on a more individual basis instead of having giant tech, you have a lot of smaller tech companies. Yeah, I don't know. But then maybe the smaller companies will get bought up by the larger ones. Then you end up with like like a larger company will just be like a lot of smaller companies, like Facebook bought up Instagram and all these like different applications, and so you have like companies will become like the big tech, like a Facebook will become like an Adobe, with like a suite of applications or something. I don't know.
Does WebGPU also mean that if you have a machine with a powerful GPU running like TensorFlow.js is like faster because it's not using your CPU?
So I don't know the answer to that question.
It's sort of out of the scope of what we're talking about here, but whatever.
Well, I mean, so I know that WebGPU is going to make graphics a lot faster. But in terms of so TensorFlow, we can look at that. Let me see if I can Maybe I should pull it up here. So TensorFlow JS. GPU use. Because I don't know how TensorFlow. Maybe it already. Because the idea that TensorFlow would use OpenGL or WebGL sounds strange to me. I would think that maybe it already uses your GPU, but I'm not sure in what respect. I mean, so WebGPU is a graphics programming library, right? And so TensorFlow wouldn't, in the first place, even use like OpenGL or WebGPU in theory.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something you run in the browser, right?
I guess you're right. You run it in Node, or you run it on a Colab, which is like a cloud server.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically
So yeah.
with TensorFlow, I've seen from a web developer's perspective, you just import it like importing a JavaScript or something library. You just right at the top of your page, you just.
Like with the CDN, you're saying? I'm trying to remember what I did.
Yeah, we do have a code example of a web page that let me see if I can find it real quick. So TensorFlow Aframe. Let's see if I can find. I want to play TensorFlow JS and movements. Oh. So I guess somebody made a TensorFlow app. I haven't seen this one before. It's the Beat Saber viewer, but basically, they said
Oh yeah, sorry. Go on.
So Charlie says, I wanted to play Beat Saber, but I don't have VR gear, so I hacked something using TensorFlow and PoseNet to play with hands and movements instead. Experimental, so don't try expert mode. So basically, as you can see in this GIF, I don't know if you can see this GIF.
Yeah, I can see it.
There's a projector screen, and Charlie's holding up two hands, and the hands are moving in different directions to try to hit these blocks. But I think we can look at the code and see how. Let's go ahead and just close this for a second. Let's inspect how it was imported. Oops. Okay, stop the sound. Okay, you probably couldn't hear that, but it started to play the Queen album, the Queen band. All right, let's see. So link, script source. Yeah, so something like CDN, JS deliver, TensorFlow. Yeah, so it's just like a CDN link and a script source at the top.
And it is like a Node package. It's like a CDN to a Node package.
In this instance, yeah. It does, I mean, I guess it doesn't. I mean, ultimately, that's just a JavaScript page, right? We could look at it. Let's see. Reveals. Open in a new tab. Oh, that's just way too messy. But ultimately, yeah, this is JavaScript. Ultimately, that's intense. I mean, it's.
Does that mean though? And again, I think I'm I'm a little out of my element here. Does that mean that when it's running though, like, what is processing? Like, I've trained a model in TensorFlow JS, and I see it like training in my browser. Like, what is it using to do the calculations for the training? Like your CPU or your GPU?
Okay, well,
I think it uses your CPU.
Huh. Okay, that's a good question. That I don't know the answer, but let's.
Yeah, no worries. That's a rabbit hole you don't have to go down. So, yeah.
It's a good question. Let's see, TensorFlow JS does it use?
Well, there's also one other thing that, so even if it's using the CPU, it could be using WebAssembly.
It says right here to note if you use the config experimental list physical devices to confirm that TensorFlow is using the GPU. The simplest way to run on multiple GPUs, one or many, is using discrete. So I think
that's TensorFlow though. Are you sure it's not different for TensorFlow JS?
Oh. goodness. Yeah, you're right. So TensorFlow is ML for using JavaScript, unchanged from what you would use on a CPU for GPU. Yeah, you're right. It's a rabbit hole that sort of goes off the topic a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just put this
So,
aside for later.
No worries. Yep.
Yeah, that documentation's not easy to search.
No. Okay, so what were we talking about? I don't know. Somebody was saying something.
We went on like a deviation from like A-frame to Babylon to WebGU. That was kind of like the threshold.
I really thought it was interesting to see how similar Babylon is to 3JS.
Right.
Yeah, let's close this. And we started talking about WebGPU. That's not super.
Have you used WebAssembly at all?
No, I haven't. Eric talks about it all the time.
I don't remember him talking about it.
Well, I mean, he always talks about WASM, right? That's short for WebAssembly.
Yeah. It's one of the many things that's on my my list of things that I wanna learn about. Oh yeah, I guess that's what when he's talking about Rust, that might be
Right.
what his interest is.
Yeah, because with WebAssembly you can bring in any, basically any programming language and run it in the web browser.
Yeah, I mean theoretically any language, but I don't think that many languages are really supported, but I think Rust is one of the main ones that is. And then C++, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, I guess, interesting trivia to find out, that somebody's using COBOL in WebAssembly.
COBOL.
Yeah, or Fortran.
What I'm interested in is, what I'd like to do is, as I'm working on the, like say 3JS stuff, or WebGL2 if it's a little lower level. If I get to a point where I'm bottlenecked by code that's maxing out the CPU,
Yeah.
then maybe that would be the incentive or the motivation to go and say, well, can I use WebAssembly? Can I take this, find what the bottleneck is, take that part of it and put it into WebAssembly, see a difference. That's I mean, I could just start using WebAssembly just to see if I can make it work. But it'd be more interesting if I had a bottleneck, a problem that I was actually trying to solve.
I mean, I think, I think a good example of WebAssembly was somebody imported like Doom or something, like the original. I don't remember if it was Doom, but it was like, or Quake or something to the web, and it was like, I guess the reason I thought it was a good example was because there's so many old applications that you may not want to rewrite that you could bring to the web with WebAssembly. I mean, because you can do a lot with JavaScript in terms of creating new applications, and of course, maybe there's some performance advantages to using Rust in some situations. But that was free. That was like, that one of the key things was just bringing legacy software to the web.
Yeah, and that's cool, but it's not something. It's not my interest.
Oh, okay.
I'm more interested in. I mean, I guess if I had some software that I really wanted to put on the web, then I might be interested, but I don't. So currently these days, I'm mostly doing JavaScript. But I do know I do have a lot of experience with C++. I spent a little bit of time learning Rust, but it's not a language I'm certainly not fluent in Rust. But it would be, if I had a JavaScript bottleneck, I think it would be interesting to see if I could write the code in C++, turn it, compile it to WebAssembly, and see if it speeded things up. I think that would be really satisfying. But currently, I don't think other things have become bottlenecks before just plain old CPU, before maxing out the CPU.
How do you turn on the web GPU flags in Canary? I just wanted to try that one example, I guess.
Well, I mean, you know how to search for like flags in the first place. It's like // let's see.
The flag is called
or just type It's weird. Oh, maybe it's okay, so type Chrome.
Yeah.
And then semicolon or colon //
Okay.
and then the word flags, and then you want to search for flags, and so you're gonna type in the word
I found it.
web GPU. Yeah, oh, you found it. Okay, great.
Yeah. And now I'm trying to get that. Do I have to like close Chrome, close Canary, and reopen it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do that. Now you all got me very curious to see.
Do you want to share? Do you want to share what you're discovering on your screen?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have a page with samples, or do you want me to paste the link?
I have a sample.
Okay.
Let me figure out what I'm doing.
If you also want to post a link, I'll add it to the document, Manon.
All right.
Right. Okay, here we are. So I'm just looking at the Babylon web GPU thing. Can you see it?
Yep.
And so this should be looking really different than old regular Babylon. Is that the story?
I don't know. I don't know the regular Babylons.
So you should be. In theory, web GPU you should be getting some graphical improvements.
I think that I do. Like, I'm going to open up the same example in my regular browser.
Okay.
Helmet, and compare them. I think they have this example. But yeah, I mean, you probably can't tell through the shared,
It looks good.
through the Jitsi, right?
It looks really good through Jitsi.
But I think it's different. Yeah, I think it's like substantially different. Like, there's this sheen on the helmet right here. Like, this sheen looks really good.
Can you post the links for the I mean, I can see it on the screen, but I can't cut and paste it.
If you want to post them
Sure, I'm putting it.
And you should be able to write on the document as well, if you want to add it to the document.
Okay. Let me do that too. Yeah, I think it's different, but it's subtle. You have to like really look at it. Hopefully, I'm not imagining it.
Yeah, I hope not.
I
And
think
then,
it's
but when
pretty
you-
different.
When you're comparing it to something that's not using WebGU, so do you have a link for that?
Yeah, I've seen this example without WebGPU, and I'm trying to pull it up,
Oh.
and I'll share that example once I pull.
All right, so now I'm downloading Chrome Canary.
Pull it up.
I've got all the Chrome betas and the Chrome Canaries
Yeah, neat.
on my Android phone, but for WebAR stuff. But are you aware of any WebAR stuff in
Yeah,
Babylon?
okay, that's I think a point of where 3.js is farther along than Babylon.
Oh,
I think that 3.js has tons of web AR examples, but I think that Babylon JS does not. But I also know that there's a new Babylon JS release coming in several months, and I don't know if that will be updated with that stuff.
I hope so. Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's that's interesting because the people at Microsoft back before the COVID-19 thing started, I would go over to the Microsoft Reactor and at these events. It's just down the street from me in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And they would tell me, yeah, you should stop developing A-Frame and start writing Babylon native, because then you can it'll run great on the HoloLens too.
Oh, apparently it is a thing. I just posted the link to it.
Oh, it is, okay. Let me.
But I've just not messed with it myself.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's not as supported as VR is, but again, I think that could radically change in the next update, which is 3 months from now.
Okay. Well, it seems like they have to at least be thinking about it a lot because HoloLens 2 is the big project at Microsoft.
Is that project, do you think, gonna be like the Quest but for AR eventually?
So interesting thing. I believe that we're about to find out that the Quest is going to be for AR this month.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Quest is changing dramatically. So there's a new Quest that's launching, and what I believe, looking at all the rumors, is that basically Facebook is going to be moving into AR with the new Oculus Quest and the old Oculus Quest. And so app developers will be able to they'll have hand tracking. It'll do augmented reality.
Wow.
Basically, any app that you can run on a HoloLens, you'll be able to run on these Quest devices.
Wow.
Quest
I've wanted to use my Quest for AR again, like web-based, like just go to the browser and go.
Yeah.
Like web-based AR, and I can't because I don't have access to the camera. It's just all blocked.
Right. It's blocked right now. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's about to change this month.
Wow, that's wild. Okay.
I hope so. I'm crossing my fingers. I want that really badly.
That's super wild.
I think that's amazing because I can't afford a HoloLens to develop.
They're $2,000. It's crazy.
Is it 2,000? I thought it was 3,500.
Oh. Whoa.
I mean, you can rent them for $100 a month, but that's you have to commit your time to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't if for $100 a month. I mean, you can buy them for $100 a month. Rent to own. I wouldn't rent them for $100 when that's the cost of buying one. It's $100 a month.
So is that thing that you're saying about Oculus Quest and AR, is that publicly documented?
Well, I mean, it's I don't know what it's not official, but there's a lot of rumors. Facebook keeps showing off these demos, and each demo they show looks a little bit more like AR features, and and they keep improving the Quest, and so everyone who's used a Quest, you try it for the first time and you you basically map your play space in augmented reality.
Right.
And now they have like pass through where you can experience the menu
Right.
the menu
I use
system.
the pass through all the time. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, that is basically augmented reality.
Right. Right.
And so one, they've been saying that there's a leak where they're showing that you can like outline your couch, the position of your couch, and that would be for like an advanced. That would be for your basically your. This is a feature. It's not AR, but this is a feature that they've been talking about since, for a couple of years now at their conferences. Hey, your Quest will be able to at someday recognize the objects in your room and reskin them. Well, if you can map out the position of your furniture by the same way you map out the position of your floor just by dragging a line that represents, that's the tool. That's the step towards being able to have a virtual representation of your physical space.
Right.
So they seem to be marching towards. And one of the reasons that they, back in, I believe it was the Oculus Connect 2016, they were saying that they weren't about to bring some of the augmented reality features because of like the performance limitations of the Oculus Quest, but now they're coming out with this brand new one that has a processor that's 3 years newer or something like that, and so the potential that I just can't imagine that it's not going to have augmented reality. That just would be like a misstep. That would be a misstep for Facebook. I think it's going to be like the base one is going to be, based on the rumors, the base one is going to be $299.
Wow.
And it's going to have 64 gigabytes, and there's just 256 gigabytes. It's going to be for $399, and then they'll both have two controllers. They'll both have hand tracking. I'm talking about the new Quest and the two new Quests will have the same features, but yeah, like there will be feature parity with the old Quest, I think. So we'll see like the really good augmented reality stuff. But there was a demo that they showed on one of the Oculus executives, the guy in charge of, I think Bosworth is his name. He was in charge of AR and VR, and I think he just recently left that role like a month or two ago. And he was saying something like to the effect of, he showed a demo of it was a augmented reality demo on an unnamed, unspecified Oculus headset device, and it was something to do with bringing the windows from your PC into your augmented reality. So like maybe like a multi-window virtual desktop type thing, but in augmented reality. And so I think that type of application will be what we'll be using a month from now. Like your PC will be in the room with you, but through the lens of your augmented reality Oculus. So I wonder if it's going to still be called Oculus Quest, and I wonder how many of those features will make it back to the Quest, considering its older processor. But it's really
That's super fascinating.
I just can't imagine that that they're not going to launch the augmented reality version. And so you'll be able to have basically the same programs that run on HoloLens 2 should auto run on the Oculus, the new Oculus Quest, basically. And so I think that goes back to like the U.S. military signed this. They had signed this contract with Microsoft to buy like 50,000 HoloLens 2, and they started to back out of it, and they're like, well, we need to get out of this contract because like if you have feature parity with a device if HoloLens has feature parity with a device that costs $300,
Right.
and it costs
Right.
over $3,000,
Right.
well, for Microsoft, and obviously the military wants out. They're like, wait a second.
This was super nice, y'all. I have to cut out. I'm definitely going to come back next week. Thanks so much for walking me through things, and would love to join the Discord. So pass
Great.
to you, Mo.
Great.
Oh, nice meeting you. Bye.
Yeah, nice to meet you all. Have a great night.
Likewise.
So, bye. Good night. Okay, let me-
So, as for being able to stream stuff, I know that WebRTC might be able to stream a Windows window or a tab onto a web interface.
Yeah, I mean, Windows RTC. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are some web streamers that are doing that. They're using WebRTC.
So it should be possible to feed that into a video element and have that be a thing that's available in WebVR.
No, totally. 100%. Like, I think we could do that now. With there's a streamer for Aframe called I'll pull it up. It's you can live stream video with. Well, I mean, this is the. Yeah. Okay. So this is. There's Vimeo Aframe. Vimeo for Aframe. That's what it is. So let me pull this up on the computer. Am I sharing my screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
or somebody is.
So Aframe. Yeah. Okay. So let me look up. Vimeo for Aframe. Aframe digital video. No, let's see. Aframe. Let's see. What was it? Aframe Vimeo streaming. Oops. What is happening here? I've got all these cables running across my keyboard. Vimeo streaming. This is weird. Aframe Vimeo component. Here we go. Easily stream Vimeo videos into VR. I mean, you don't have to use Vimeo for this. You can just... The basic concept is the same, but there are examples. Gosh, what I really want to find is the glitch. Let me see, Vimeo, Aframe, not glitch, the component. I want to find the GitHub. Because yeah, here we go. How to run Aframe Vimeo. I sort of took it off the screen for a second. I think this is it. Yeah. Vimeo A-frame component. Yeah, so this is, I'll add this to the document in a second here, but basically, you can do streaming live video, and, you know, obviously you can broadcast your computer live with OBS, right? And, so that's one way to do it. Then there's WebRTC, and you don't have to use Vimeo at all. You can just, you know, update your texture based on your. I used Vimeo in one of my projects, but.
Well, Vimeo would solve the problem of hosting if they do that.
Yeah, it's hosting on their fast CDN, so it helps you to. It does the heavy lifting to stream, you know, worldwide, right? So that's good for if you're doing a commercial project like I am, but you can still, you know, I guess you can host. Yeah, it's one way to do it. A-frame glitch, and it works. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one way to do it. So. Yeah, I remember this. So you have all this, like, this is another, you know, they have all this, let's see, where's the examples page? What's interesting about this was they separated the header and the footer from the basic. So they just put, so this is like, I didn't know you could do this, but when I was messing around with the Vimeo component, it was like, I learned this for the first time. You can take your HTML page and you can divide it up into multiple pages. Does everyone else know this? You can put your header in one page, and then you can reference your header in your main page. You just say,
No, I didn't know that.
yes.
Is this a glitch thing?
No. This is basically a way to break up an HTML page into multiple pages. You do like you create a container that's basically a percentage sign and a minus sign, and then you say include, and then you reference the HTML page, and then it inserts the entire HTML header from over here into basic, and then the footer, so that way you can be really specific about what is in your, you know, what's relevant.
Yeah.
This is the
I
only.
prefer to put everything into one big file.
Me too. Yeah. I mean, like.
Or at least that's the way it happens.
Well, I don't really get
Find it that way.
I don't really get the point of the fact that, you know, the footer is 3 lines, right? It's just like, here's a script tag, and the script tag is just a reference to another JS, to another page. So there's just, why don't they just include the 3 lines? Instead, they reduced the 3 lines to 1 line. That was sort of pointless, but I guess it maybe just illustrated the fact that you can divvy up a web page like that, and just really, and maybe that's useful for like creating examples for people. Like, here's the essential stuff, and here's the non-essential stuff.
I might have to go soon. I'm falling asleep.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all. Well, I'm falling asleep too. Let's go ahead and end it here for tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
But hope to see everybody here next week. We'll have more activities planned for next week.
All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Good night.